大家好，欢迎收看今天的全球瞭望，我是郭崇文。日本首相安倍晋三4月底率领了政府团队前往美国进行国事访问，其中备受关注的就是双方在部长级会议中更新了18年来未曾变更的美日防卫指针，而这项新指针将贯彻安倍解禁集体自卫权的政策。请看我们的报道。
No, we don't think that a strong U.S.-Japan alliance should be seen as a provocation. It should be seen as a continuation of the important work that we've done. As I've said before, we welcome China's peaceful rise.
美国总统奥巴马与日本首相安倍晋三28号在白宫花园召开联合记者会。奥巴马嘴上强调美国乐见中国大陆和平崛起，但也坦诚对于大陆在南海地区动作频频，确实让美日两国相当担心。两人同时也针对 TPP 跨太平洋伙伴协议以及亚投行的各种风声做出回应。
まず TPP については、これは中国を意識して作るものではもちろんありません。中国の経済的な発展というのは日本だけではなくて米国にも世界にとっても大いなるチャンスであろうとこう思います。
So let me be very clear and dispel this notion that we were opposed or are opposed to other countries participating in the Asia Infrastructure Bank. That is simply not true.
安倍这次率团访问美国，除了举行双边领袖会谈，同时也召开了2+2部长级会议，两国拍板新的美日防卫指针。美国国务卿柯瑞清楚点明，钓鱼台也就是日本称为尖阁诸岛的列屿，属于日本管辖。
Our treaty commitments to Japan's security remains ironclad and covers all territories under Japan's administration.including the Senkaku Islands.
その中で我々4閣僚はこの尖閣諸島が日本の施政の下にある領域であり、日米安全保障条約5条の下でこの米国のコミットメントの下で適用されること、そしておよびこの同諸島に対する日本の姿勢を損なういかなる一方的行動にも反対するということを再確認いたしました。
日经新闻网指出，美国同意修改防卫指针，是因为近期大陆在东海跟南海的挑衅行为越来越明显。美日双方更同意，日本自卫队角色将更吃重，和美军的合作范围也不再局限于日本周边，而是将扩展至全球。美日两国更新了合作防卫指针，美国更承认日本在钓鱼台的主权。这个2+2部长级会议预计会引发一连串国际政治效应。UDN TV 综合报道。
我们今天来谈日本在对美国以及对中国大陆最新的安全以及它的外交政策。来到我们摄影棚的是日本庆应大学的沈宝谦教授。Welcome, Professor Jimbo, to our show.
Thank you very much, and hello, everybody.
To begin with, let's talk about the new security guideline. My understanding is that there's two parts of it. One is Japan and the U.S., its security cooperation should be enlarged, not only bilateral, but also regional, even global. But the other part is Japan wants to make sure that the U.S. will help Japan self-defense, even when there's a situation that is not being attacked directly. Would you elaborate on those things that maybe somewhat Japan what the Japan really want the U.S. to do, or what the U.S. want Japan to do?
Yes, in past two decades of the development of the U.S.-Japan security alliance, we saw the expansion of the scope of the geography where two nations can collaborate together. In 1990s, the issue was on Korean Peninsula. So under the previous guideline, we actually outlined how Japan can contribute to the United States in terms of providing the logistic support to them. In 2000, it was anti-terrorism warfare, so we dispatched our troops to the Indian Ocean and also to Iraq. But in recent years, we have increasingly shift our focus to the rise of China and the phenomena, especially in the East China Sea, where we see the frequent intrusion of the Chinese, maritime vessels, which includes our concern over territorial integrity over Senkaku/Diaoyu Islands. So that this guideline particularly focus on the issue of what we call the gray zone, which falls between the armed attack situation and also during the peacetime. So there are so many gray zone situations that we really need to work with. And that is the reason why we focus on our self-defense is the matter which to be focused on the U.S.-Japan Defense Cooperation Guideline, and which includes the situation before the organized armed attack may happen on our islands.
But let me ask you, do you think that during the new guideline, has U.S. provided enough insurance to Japan?
Well, I think I can say two things. One is, as we just saw the TV news, Secretary Kerry and President Obama both mentioned very clearly about the U.S. commitment on the Article 5 of the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty, which ensures the United States defends Japan in the time of being attacked by a third party. And so that is the huge commitment over our defending remote islands, including the Senkaku/Diaoyu Islands. But at the same time, it is not so clear about what kind of, the particular measures to be taken by part of the United States during the gray zone challenges. Gray zone seems to be that the case where Japan has to take a primary role. Including our coast guards and the police forces. It is about the law enforcement action by our own regards. And we are not still sure about United States particular role to be played during the gray zone. So it's very clear on the Article 5, but not so clear on the gray zone issues.
But isn't it true that from the U.S. mentality, that the U.S. would need Japan to shoulder some of the global security burden, but rather the U.S. would not like itself to be entangled or entrapped in the small island dispute with China? Do you think that it's not a very balanced agreement?
Well, obviously, the United States has its own principle or the basic stance over the territorial disputes, and they've been saying since 1970s that the United States would not take sides of the bilateral dispute over those issues. But when it comes to the alliance management, United States will commit when there will be organized attack towards the territory under our Japanese administrative control. So this principle has been clearly been set. But as you may say, that the United States would not want to be entrapped in the case of Japan-China controversy over the disputed islands. So I think it is the case that the Japan has to take its own responsibility of managing the peaceful solution of any kinds of disputes on the area. At the same time, it is our Japanese perception that if the United States will be remoted or detached from that issue, China may think that this is a case that you have to expand the gray zone as much as possible for their own interest as well. So I think for Japan, we also need a balanced, nuanced approach from the United States. Do not, we understand they don't want to take sides, but at the same time, we don't want United States complete ignorance over the committing towards the gray zone issue.
And on the other hand, the U.S. would very much like Japan in supporting the regional security. For instance, Defense Minister Ashton Carter, when he visited Japan, had asked Japan to provide civilians coverage, especially the anti-submarine detection to the South China Sea. But so far, Japan have been reluctant to do it, saying that they don't have enough capacity. Would you care to talk a little bit about this, especially when this is something that the U.S. had asked right after the new guideline? Isn't it that Japan would have to show that it's fulfilling its commitment?
Sure. I think Tokyo and Washington are increasingly concerned about the situation in the South China Sea. And there are seemingly the deteriorated situation in those areas. And obviously, the United States would like to expand its surveillance operation way into the South China Sea and seek for potential Japanese collaboration towards it. But as you also correctly mentioned, as a capability is concerned, I think our surveillance assets like a P3C and other vessels and assets may have a limited capacity to cover the broader area of the South China Sea. So it might be too early to think about our creating the details of the operation, especially when we talk about the regular surveillance in the South China Sea. I think we really need to reconfigure our kind of assets operating in the South China Sea.
With the new security guideline, and also there's a general policy on rebalancing of Asia, people now talk about there's a Asian NATO that is forming these days with the US at its core, and you have Japan, Australia, and even India as its founding member. Are you seeing there's an Asian NATO forming?
I would say there is no such kind of organization like NATO is being formed in Asia.
I understand for the NATO standard, it had to be very rigorous. You have interoperability, those kind of things. It's very too early for an Asian country to have that kind of capability.
Right. One of the fundamental difference between NATO and what's been happening in the Asia-Pacific region is that in Asia there are no expansion of the mutual defense, commitment within each other. But what we are developing right now is the deepening collaboration on the functional security relationship. For example, between Japan and Australia, we have agreed upon sharing of the intelligence and then having a more like a joint training and exercises over the maritime security issues. And then probably we will embark upon the defense equipment transfer issues. Obviously, Australia is interested in purchasing our latest submarine.
Right.
And that kind of relationship also to be expanded to India and to some extent with Philippines and Vietnam as well. So it is a kind of nest of cooperation which would be based on the functional relationship among us. But it wouldn't say that that will develop into the level where NATO is enjoying the joint kind of defense, collective defense relationship with each other.
In the case of NATO, of course, besides the mutual cooperation, there's a powerful enemy, Soviet Union and Warsaw Pact at that time. So, do you see that this kind of thing, similar kind of thing, is happening in Asia with China substituting Soviet Union, the role of it, and then that will prompt the Asian NATO to form?
Well, I can mention similarity and differences. And similarity is the fact that there is the rise of China, which also entails with the assertive military posture, especially on the maritime front, which creates everybody's concern that needs the international collaboration, how to counter those assertiveness, especially in the maritime security. But the huge differences between former Soviet Union and also the present China is that every nation is heavily interdependent economically with China. Almost like every nation's neighboring country has the biggest trade relation with China, which creates a lot of like a huge economic state to have a constructive relationship. So it cannot be like a all or nothing type of relationship could be created. It's more nuanced. There will be a lot of like a balancing, hedging, types of collaboration. But at the same time, we are not only hedging for the sake of hedging. We are hedging probably to create, to shape the, to endorse the Chinese constructive behavior in the future. So that might be the huge difference between them.
Let me ask you, we are seeing American allies in Asia, they are increasing the cooperation among each other. But there's one exception, the South Korea. Now South Korea seems to be keep its distance from the US, Japan, and used to be South Korea, Northeast Asia Security Alliance. Why is it that? People talk about there's concern coming from China. That's one of the factors. People also talk about there's remains some difference between Japan and South Korea. Would you care to comment on this?
Well, I still think that fundamental security interest of Korea still lies in U.S.-Korea security alliances.
Right.
And given the fact that Korea has its own security stake vis-a-vis North Korea, the U.S. commitment is the cornerstone of their security. And we also see the extension of what they call the operational command transfer. That's called OPCON issues. And South Korea is under the U.S. command in case of emergency. And used to be that those command structure will be transferred to Korea in 2015, but now it has been extended.
Today, right.
So it also means that how important that integration between the two forces in countering the situation of North Korea. So I think it still is the case that Korea is very much in line with the United States, and Korea-U.S. alliance is in a good shape according to them. But at the same time, there are trends that the Korean economy are tilting towards China.
Right.
And Korea's people's mindset and their business relationships are increasingly engaged in case of the China. So I think it might be more balanced view that the Koreans like economic and societal relationship are more inclined to China. But at the same time, there is a security fundamentals that we still believe that Korea is on the U.S. side.
Recently, there's a big issue in South Korea, the THAAD, the high altitude missile defense system. And China had formally raised its concern and asking the South Korea would not try not to deploy X-band radar coming from the U.S. Do you think, which direction do you think that may be a very important indicator for the future Korean policy on security?
Right. As far as Korean experts' view is concerned, the missile defense, especially the THAAD system, would not be their security priority. Comparing to North Korean, actual attack towards Seoul, and also they are also have to deal with the asymmetrical assaults by North Korean forces. Missile may be the part of it, but not really as a highest priority for the Korean defense. So in order to do so, what United States wish to see is the more security collaboration with Japan by connecting the platform of the radar system, detection system, and tracking system together, which creates a regional missile defense networks, which creates a more, I think, density over how they can respond to the possible North Korean attack. So for South Korea, seemingly that it is not really part of their defense priority, but I think it is a priority for U.S., Korea, and Japan trilateral alliance mechanism. So I would understand the sensitivity over how they would decide, over the THAAD issue. But I think for the Japanese perspective is concerned, we highly expect that the Korea will come to, the stance that they will, share those intelligence and asset with us.
Eventually.
Eventually.
Okay. We'll turn into Japan and China relations in the second part. 我们等一下回来继续来谈日本跟中国大陆最近关系的发展。欢迎回到节目的现场。中日友好交流大会23号在北京举行。日方代表团成员多达3000多人，是近年访华规模最大的一次。大陆国家主席习近平也亲自出席，接受日本首相安倍晋三的亲笔信，显示中日双方在政府与民间方面都逐渐在改善双边关系。请看我们的报道。
近年来，因为钓鱼台和历史问题停滞不前的中日关系，双方都在想尽办法寻求突破，而民间交流就是其中之一。23号晚上，大陆国家主席习近平在人民大会堂出席了欢迎中日观光文化交流团的晚宴。日方代表团不仅多达3000人，为日本近年规模最大的访华代表团，团员涵盖商界、旅游界、国会议员和媒体等领域人士。
中国高度重视发展中日关系。 尽管中日关系历经风雨，但中方这一基本方針始終沒有改變。
近平主席閣下をはじめとする中国側の皆さん方からも前向きのご指示をいただきながら、共に日中関係の新時代を築いてまいりたいと思います。
今年同时也是抗战胜利70周年，习近平也不忘借着场合向日方提醒了历史问题在中日关系上的重要性。日媒共同社则分析，以下这席话应该是为了要制衡安倍晋三今夏发表的战后70年谈话。
当年日本军国主义犯下的侵略罪行不容掩盖，历史真相不容歪曲。
不过，日方代表团终究还是以从事交流活动为主。在欢迎晚宴召开之前，许多团员就抓紧时间展開觀光行程，其中不少人逛起了胡同。
でこういうものを見ると、その小説の実際の家々を見る感じになるので。
日方的代表团团长、自民党总务会长二阶俊博还转交了安倍晋三的亲笔信给习近平。共同社报道，习近平向二阶表示，他跟安倍同意发展战略互惠关系，照此推进的话，两国关系会变好。而虽然这是场看似单纯的民间交流活动，但还是观察得到两国政府不放弃以民间渠道接触沟通的外交方针。UDN TV 杨旭炎编译。
我们继续跟沈宝教授来做访谈。Professor Jimbo, only a year ago, U.S. and China and Japan relations is at all-time low. But we just saw from the clip that there's very encouraging sign that both sides have resumed its tie. And I think the leader, both countries have met with each other. And then now the thing that haven't been done yet is the mutual visit of the head of states. Why is there such a dramatic change from a year ago to now?
Well, obviously, Japan-China relationship has been deteriorated since September 2012, when our Japanese government has nationalized the so-called Senkaku / Diaoyu islands. And obviously, China made unpleasant statements over it, and which created the absence of the summit meeting more than 2 years. And obviously, China has requested us to make a major concession on the territorial issue. Without recognizing it as a territorial issue, there will be no summit meeting between two sides. So we have thought what would be the actual condition to be made. And then we came up with what we call the 4 points agreement in November last year, which made...
Just before the APEC meeting.
That's right, which created the political condition for two sides to meet with each other. And I think behind that, there has been a growing needs for both sides that Japan and China has to come up with possible crisis management mechanism, especially in the East China Sea. I think two countries' economy and the political confidence will be too big to fail. So I think that the growing, notion that we have to come up and talk with each other has been the background why we have to meet with each other.
But if we look at the 4 points consensus or agreement, it's as if both sides are playing with words and try to satisfy each other while at the same time satisfy its domestic audience. And this kind of wording, although it's become an agreement, do you think it's very fragile that it may not last for an extended period?
Well, I would describe as diplomatic brilliance and diplomatic wisdom that East Asian country has also experienced over some decades. Looking back, like in 1972, the United States and China came up with a Shanghai Communique, which is quite unpleasant for the Taiwanese experience. Right. But at the same time, for the United States, it was the wisdom how to engage China by acknowledging Chinese view that Taiwan belongs to China. And it doesn't legally recognize the Chinese claim, but at least that Washington listened to what the Beijing said. And that's one example. And the second example is another controversial issue, is the 1992 consensus between mainland and Taiwan. And for Taiwanese perception, Taiwan actually, interpret differently on the concept of one China. And there is a one China, but there is a two interpretation to be remain, especially on the Taiwan side. So when it comes to the Senkaku issue, we actually transferred those formats. So I would say there is a one territory, but there are two interpretations over the island. But without letting China to actually intrude legally on this issue. So I think the status quo has been maintained, but I think we actually made a stance towards China that we listen to your claims.
Could you explain a little bit further how can two sides can express with different interpretation?
Well, I think that is also the case of the diplomacy. We actually agreed upon the different views would exist. Formally, it's the case that Japanese side re-emphasized that there is no issue to talk about. There's no territorial issue, no legal claim, so that there's nothing to talk with you. And Chinese was very unpleasant about this issue. At least we made a slight concession that at least we'll listen to you and we acknowledge your view, right? Without acknowledgement of entering into any legal debate on that issue. So we save face for China, and China can save face for their people.
So
and
it's actually saying that Japan is saying we acknowledge that China had different view on this territory,
right?
But rather recognizing there's a difference on the sovereignty claim. Right.
Right. I mean, so that I do understand why you talk about the fragility of this debate, because there could be a fundamental misunderstanding over this agreement. But I think it is the wisdom, again, to let the Chinese leaders to explain to the Chinese people that now that Japan has changed its stance, and we let them to explain in Chinese domestic audiences. But at the same time, we also want to China to allow us to explain to our people that we never change our own stance fundamentally on this issue. But we also acknowledge the Chinese view on this, but nothing changed on the legal issues. So that is the kind of diplomatic wisdom we want to play with each other.
And you are saying that both sides would like this relationship to be resumed and coming back. But there's more challenge ahead, especially there's a end of the war anniversary talk, a historical talk should be done by Prime Minister Abe. And China is very concerned what he is going to talk about. Do you think that both sides had reached agreement on this, or do you expect there are going to be differences inside?
Well, there have been numbers of the pretext for Prime Minister Abe's speech on August 15th. Abe already made a speech in the U.S. Congress and also at the Bandung conference. And both of these speeches, he made very clearly about the historical issue and his own remorse over the past experience of the war. And I think that he may be taking the low key over not creating any challenges specifically on this agenda. And as Mr. Nikai, who just made a visit to Beijing, clearly mentioned, that Prime Minister Abe is taking Japan-China relationship as one of the most important relationship in Asia. So I wouldn't really expect that the Prime Minister Abe will creating its own controversy between Japan and China over the historical issue.
But so far from the two speeches he had been given, do you expect he will meet the Chinese demand 100%, or is it like halfway?
Well, I think there will be no 100% satisfactory response from neighboring countries, especially given that there are varieties of views exist over the historical experiences. But one thing I could assure is that Prime Minister Abe will inherit and refer to the past speeches and statements made by previous prime ministers, which include the 1995 Murayama speech and 1993 the Kono speech over the comfort woman issue. And we don't know whether he will directly or explicitly mention these wording or not, but I think the tone that he will going to make is repeating and inheriting what the previous prime minister mentioned in past years.
Finally, from a long-term perspective, do you expect China and Japan is going to have a full-scale competition because of its security or strategic or even trade or economic scale? Or is it something that it had built up mutually between culture or even there's an economic interest that will bind them together? Or which way do you think will evolve in the future?
Well, I think these two aspects can go in parallel. So we see the two dynamics going in tandem. On one sense, that strategic competition between Japan and China becomes more severe into the future, given that we are the two rivals, facing with each other, especially over the maritime issues in East China Sea. But at the same time that you see the trends of the gigantic flows of the peoples and goods and services between two countries, and obviously there were 3,000 economic missions. People have just visited China. They all talk about the opportunity rather than the risks of the investing and having a trade and invest relationship with China. So I think that the management of the major power relationship in Asia can also be very paradoxical when we say the security rivalry, but at the same time we see the economic partnerships.
Okay, in the third part, we'll talk about Taiwan and Taiwan's role in this changing Asia situation. 我们等一下回来最后一段，我们来谈台湾在这个变动当中要扮演什么样的角色。我们继续来跟沈宝教授来做访谈。Professor Jimbo, let me ask you about the cross-strait relations. I understand the tension of the cross-strait had always been a concern for Japan and U.S. security arrangement. And we are seeing that with the rise of China, there's more capability coming from the China side, especially what we call anti-access or area denial capability. So in terms of the new guideline, is there anything that is addressed to this kind of capability that in case there's a conflict across the street, that this new guideline can have its function?
Well, I think U.S.-Japan cooperation guidelines since 1997 took serious concern over the situation may happen in surrounding area of Japan.
Especially the 1995 exercise that China is having?
That's correct. But mainly that is primarily on the Korean Peninsula issue. Right. But also associated question does involve the situation of the cross-strait relationship. And this notion has basically inherited in the 2015 guideline as it is. And we also expand our menu of cooperation, including the peacetime surveillance and also during the wartime as well. So mainly the commitment for Japan, for U.S. involvement in this region has expanded. And that might be the case to understand the current guideline. But at the same time, as you mentioned, what is different between 1997 and this year is the capability of China. 1997, we were almost very certain about United States will come and help Taiwan defense whenever they will decide. But this time, because of, as you mentioned, A2AD capability, it might be highly costly for the United States to make a decision of the military commitment. So I think what we are currently crafting is how we can ensure the U.S. operational access in the cross-strait relationship through the elaboration of our military operation in this area.
That means the Japan self-defense force would actually join in the U.S.-led intervention of the cross-strait?
Well, I think there will be no option for Japan to, deny such kind of, cooperation options vis-a-vis United States when it comes to the cross-strait relationship. And secondly, Taiwan Strait is very close to our Southwest Islands, and it might be hardly imaginable that our Article 5 over U.S.-Japan security relationship, which is a direct attack over Japan, would not be, involved in the case of Taiwan cross-strait relationship. So automatically involves our security concerns. So which creates our natural, course of action that will play, key role in those operations.
You just talk about there's an increasing PLA capability. There are some scholars, especially from American scholars, they are talk about Taiwan abandonment, meaning that the U.S. should not fulfill its commitment to Taiwan security in order to avoid there's a strategic confrontation with Taiwan, with China, I mean. What do you think about this kind of Taiwan abandonment view? Is it become mainstream now in the United States, and what's the Japan see about this?
Well, I think it's a peripheral view of the U.S. academics who talks about the strategy and long-term commitments to Asia. Policy-wise speaking, I think it is very dangerous to see those arguments will be made available on Taiwan because it concerns the credibility of the U.S. commitment in this region. If United States decide to abandon Taiwan, I don't think that Japan will be reassured by those stances. So it will be no chance for the United States to make such kind of decisive statement. But what we have to concern is the increasing political and military cost of the involvement of the Taiwan Straits, which I've just explained. So I think it is very important what kind of concept that we elaborate for ensuring the U.S. operational access in this region. And that is what we call the counter A2AD capability. And the elaboration of this concept will be a very important pillar for ensuring the security of Taiwan.
You just mentioned there's a tremendous cost of U.S. defending Taiwan, and there's also this talk about Taiwan abandonment. Of course, there are some people in Taiwan talk about, do we have an alternative, meaning some people propose that we should become neutralized, or Finlandization, meaning that we don't do something that will be offending China or antagonize China. What's your thinking on that? Because this idea of Finlandization is coming from Europe. And do you think Taiwan can really adopt that kind of policy?
Well, it really depends on the Taiwan status in the international economy, politics, and society. If Taiwan diversified its strategic relationship and economic ties with other nations, and everybody regards Taiwan as an indispensable entity in the international politics. And I do not think that the Finlandization could be possible in this regard. So I think that the strategic status of Taiwan would not only be decided by its own military balance, but also through the political status and economic figure of the future Taiwan.
But the people arguing for this idea is saying that if Taiwan wants to secure its total security, why not Japan or U.S. can include Taiwan in its own security framework? Would that be a better way to secure Taiwan's security? I mean, somehow we are caught in between. And this is a very awkward situation that really worry a lot of people in Taiwan.
Right. There has been the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979.
But not comparing with Japan and U.S. security
That's correct.
relations.
Right. So that might be the case of the United States indirect commitment to Taiwan because of the special political status has been made since 1970s. So we would like to see the Taiwanese confidence over securing their own territory through its own defense and also through the commitment by the United States, through the arms sales and also United States will to resolve this issue. And in case of Japan, I think that we share the strategic interest of securing the safety of the maritime issue. And Taiwan obviously is located in a very strategically important location for Japan. So naturally, we do care the situation in Taiwan, and possibly we want to expand the political confidence between two sides. And that might be the case that we could, expand and elaborate further.
More concretely, how can Japan do to increase security cooperation with Taiwan?
Well, this becomes a really sensitive issue, but I'm outside the government, so let me just elaborate my own idea towards it. I think what we can do is to focus on possible like a military-to-military relationship over like a functional relationship, including like a humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, because this is everybody's interest. When Japan was suffered by the great East Japan earthquake, there are humanitarian missions, come all over, and vice versa for Taiwan as well. Something accident happened at the sea in between Taiwan and Japan. We've got to work together, which involves the Coast Guards, police and military and other agency, a whole government approach as well. So I think that should be, nobody could deny the demand for this future collaboration. And through having those practical cooperation between two sides, we can evolve our interoperability, communications, and also the confidence between two sides, which can also evolve at the time that we can actually have a quasi-formal relationship through those cooperation.
Do you think one of cooperation also involved with the weapon technology export? I understand that Japan had relaxed restriction on weapon export, but do you think that Taiwan can have similar cooperation with Japan like in other countries?
Well, I think at least I can say is that there is a potential that our export policy do include the country like Taiwan. But at the same time, that really needs the political calculation over the balance sheet. And every time the U.S. arms sales will be conducted with Taiwan, there's a huge friction that the Beijing and Washington would experience. And what will be the case when Tokyo embarks upon the same format, getting into the arms, global arms sales market, that includes Taiwan, might be the huge issue to manage the Japan-China relations.
Thank you very much, Professor Xunbo,
Thank you so much.
To take our interview. It was very enlightening. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
我们等一下还要看今天还有哪些重要的国际消息。
阿里巴巴董事局主席马云9号在纽约经济俱乐部发表演说，指出海外业务目前只占阿里营收的2%，并期望在未来达到40%。马云希望能以阿里为平台，将美国的中小企业产品带进大陆市场，让这些企业一半的利润由大陆市场来贡献。对于假货风波，马云强调，阿里已经投入3000名全职员工打假，也不忘控诉假货商。同时，上任1个月的阿里巴巴执行长张勇也呼应马云，发表了文章，勾勒所处行业的未来。他预言电子商务4个字将会消失，取而代之的是商业的电子化。企业首先要重新 新塑造供应链，再来是重视消费者营销，把消费者当成粉丝，并提供分层的服务和产品，才能持续生存。阿里管理层的频频发言，也显示出主导未来行业游戏规则的企图心。
随着南韩 MERS 疫情一发不可收拾，当地已经有约2200间学校暂时关闭，超过南韩学校总数量的10%。自从周一出现第一位青少年确诊病例后，各级学校都开始加强防疫工作。从政府到市井小民，防疫措施都不可或缺。基本的口罩、干洗手等个人卫生用品已是人手一个。学校也每日测量学童体温，以确认是否有可疑患者。而南韩政府宣布了一系列防疫措施，以落实隔离和通报管理。健保福利部表示，治疗 MERS 疑似或确诊患者的费用将由政府全额支付。而针对隔离管理，当局正与电信业者协商，将以手机 GPS 追踪目标对象的位置。违反隔离规定的民众将处以300万韩元的罚款，约为台币9万元。目前香港已对南韩发出旅游警示，取消出行的旅游团也创下新高，数量超过600个，约有12000人受到影响。
日本过去20年来经济成长疲软，不易找到正职稳定的工作。于是目前社会上出现了一个现象，就是中年处男数量不断增加。根据2010年一项统计，30到40岁的未婚男性有25%从来没有性经验，比1992年还多了3%。所以随着这个趋势，日本坊间开启了处男学校，这里的课程从认识女性的身体到如何和异性相处都有。创办人的目标是让这些单身男子经由正确健康的方式早点开窍，终结单身。婚姻媒合专家指出，过去20年来日本经济不振，对许多找不到稳定工作的男性信心打击很大，也影响了和女性的交往。日本情色产业盛行，街上到处都可看到性感海报，但其实很少人会认真谈论性的问题。调查显示，18到19岁的日本人当中，有68%没有性经验，比例比德国甚至相对保守的土耳其都还要高。来上课的学员对这里的启蒙课程非常惊艳，希望不久的将来就可以学以致用，顺利和女性建立良好的两性关系。
一如市场的预期，欧洲最大银行汇丰银行在9号宣布，将全球大幅裁员5万人，相当于目前1/5的人力，其中有一半来自整并电脑和后勤部门，以及关闭12%的分行，另一半则来自准备出售的巴西和土耳其业务。瘦身后，汇丰的营运规模将减少约1/4，目标是在未来2年每年省下50亿美元成本。汇丰近年丑闻缠身，因为涉及洗钱跟操纵汇市，接连遭到监管单位重罚，这次大刀阔斧整顿业务，就是希望重拾投资人信心。节流的同时，也要开源。汇丰计划增加亚洲业务，并拓展保险事业和发展珠三角市场，因此汇丰也在评估把总部从伦敦迁往亚洲。目前最有可能的地点就是香港，不仅能接近目标市场，也可避开英国对跨国公司的高额重税。汇丰表示，评估报告预计会在年底前出炉。
今天谢谢您收看全球瞭望，我们明天见。